I woke up this morning worried about my future. For years now, I've been committed to becoming a great writer. But as our world changes faster than ever before, and talk of AI replacing creative fields reaches a fevered pitch, I felt like my dreams were evaporating. Some of you may have shared these fears that our cherished art of writing could one day be replaced by mere algorithms. And up until this morning, my natural reaction was to resist, to stubbornly dig into my heels or to turn a blind eye to the winds of change. But as I sat there at my desk, I realized something. This technology isn't going anywhere. In fact, it will only get better. So like every other writer of our time, I had a choice to make. I could run in fear from these changes, or I could approach them with curiosity and learn to accept them. And at least for me, acting out of fear doesn't seem to be the right choice. So today, as the first step of cultivating curiosity, I've decided to co-write a short story from idea to finished draft with the most famous AI tool yet, Chat GPT.
Oh, this one is cool. A treasure hunter finds a map to a legendary underwater city only to discover it's inhabited by horrifying creatures. It's a short story, so I just want it to be like 1 or 2 characters. We might have the treasure hunter, and then I think having like a sidekick kind of character who's there with them might be kind of fun. I think that's what I'm gonna do. So I'm gonna figure out these characters first, and then we'll just get started trying to figure out the story. Has been a little interruption here. Somebody decided to show up again. I was just brainstorming the characters with the help of ChatGPT. We came up with some ideas for different combinations of these 2 characters. So we have the treasure hunter being this fearless character, and then their sidekick being a more cautious one. So we have 2 characters. First, the treasure hunter named Roderick Rodeo Latham. I actually changed the name. It was originally Rhodey. I changed it to Rodeo. And I actually wove it into his backstory. So basically, he came from this line of cowboys on one side of his family. And because of that, he grew up participating in those sorts of like events in rodeos and bull riding and that sort of thing. And because of that, the archaeological community, they don't really like the fact that he's like this treasure hunter and the fact that he's a little bit more adventurous. He's not so focused on like the drier aspects and whatnot. So because of that, they derisively nicknamed him Rodeo, but he actually embraces this nickname.
ChatGPT also came up with a bunch of details about him, which are kind of generic.
But it is interesting to have ChatGPT come up with it so quickly and so easily.
It also took a matter of seconds to spew out details for this side character,
who I already like because of her name, Ellie.
I swear.
She's kind of like the counterbalance to his impulsiveness, where she's like patient and cautious and thoughtful and trying to make sure they stay alive during their adventures. So I think this will be an interesting little dynamic here. Next, I want to come up with some plot points for the story. So I've been trying to figure out the outline of this story. So I gave ChatGPT a basic idea of what the story would be like. I had ChatGPT come up with a basic outline for this, and now I'm just kind of going back and forth and brainstorming different ideas of what could happen and trying to get it to the point where the story is something that I actually want to write. So I just revised the outline here with the help of ChatGPT, and I think that we've got some interesting plot points here. I think the story is working out in a way that I like personally, that I think would be interesting to tell. So the next thing I want to do is actually get a little bit more in depth with the outline of these scenes. Right now, each scene is kind of like a sentence. So I asked ChatGPT to come up with a scene sequel structure for each of the scenes. And, you know, it didn't really generate anything that I was really that excited about.
I resent that.
So what I'm going to do instead is I'm just going to go through and figure out the scene sequel aspects myself. And if I need help coming up with ideas for potential conflict or potential unexpected outcome for a scene or something like that, then I can use ChatGPT to brainstorm those things. But I'm just gonna try to figure out these things the old-fashioned way because I trust myself to create these scenes more than I trust this tool right now. So I've been working through these scenes, trying to figure out what they're going to be about, and I kind of got stuck on one, so I decided to reach out to the old Chat GPT and see if it could help me with some of the brainstorming. So I asked it about what might happen in this certain case and how this guy might respond. Although I didn't really like its answer because I felt it was a little bit too clean, it did give me a good idea for something that would be a little bit more difficult from a character conflict perspective. Now I'm very excited to write that part. So I just finished the entire outline all the way to the last bit. I'm thinking this story is looking interesting and I'm looking forward to actually writing it. However, it's already 3:16, so I don't really think I have time to write it today. So I think this is actually going to end up as a 2-day challenge, and I'll be back tomorrow to continue writing and continue using Chat GPT to help. Before we start writing here today, I do want to do one last little thing. I want to just go through the outline, take it pass through, just get some of the basic like world building details and that sort of stuff worked out, because frankly, I'm realizing that in my stories a lot of times I have unclear parts of the world building before I even start writing, and then it makes it harder to write and maintain consistency across the story. So I'm going to take some time to figure that stuff out. So I finished cleaning up some of the unknowns. With those things figured out, I'm pretty much ready to actually get started writing. Before we do that, I want to make sure ChatGPT is on board to write this story. So let's see how it thinks this will go.
As an AI language model, I cannot make predictions about whether or not this will be a good story. That is up to the writer to make happen. In this case, you. If you need any assistance in creating a story that isn't downright awful, feel free to ask.
I forced it to say that. It didn't want to say that. Up until now, I've basically just been using ChatGPT to help me with brainstorming various aspects, figuring out the world building, the characters, the plot, all of that stuff. Now is the part that's potentially controversial and the part that I'm hesitant to do myself, but I'm kind of curious to see what will happen, and this experience here is all about exploring what these tools can actually offer to authors and how to help us create better stories that actually resonate with people emotionally and move them in the way that we want. Because of that, I'm just going to try and use this to its full capabilities. So I joined this Facebook group called AI Writing for Authors, and I'm basically going to work through one of the methods that somebody used to draft scenes using ChatGPT. So this is a little bit crazy. We'll see how it works because of the fact that I've already outlined all of these scenes in the same chat with it. It should remember what we talked about previously and thus should be able to write these scenes reasonably well. First, I'm going to try to figure out the tropes that I want to use for this story. Let's see what happens. This is crazy. And now I'm ready to actually have it try to write the first scene. I told it a few things to keep in mind. First of all, I said that the story will be a novelette, around 15,000 words. I said that it should write as a best-selling action-adventure horror author, whatever that means. I told it that we're going to go scene by scene, and I'll present it with a goal, conflict, unexpected outcome, or reaction, dilemma, decision, depending on whether it's a scene or a sequel. And I told it the scenes should be around 750 to 1250 words. And then I asked if it needed any other information to start, and it asked if I had any stylistic preferences. I don't really have any specific ones, so I just said that the tone should be dark and mysterious, but include some lighthearted moments from the two characters occasionally. The pace should be quick, that we should include clear, vivid, censored descriptions, as well as internal-external dialogue that is relevant and adds to the story, and that it should be told from a third-person limited perspective, from the perspective of Rodeo. That's basically all I gave it. And now I'm going to start with this first scene, asking it to write it. And we'll see what it generates. This is going to be so weird. I entered the details for the first scene, checked for mistakes, and pressed the return key as shakily as a 5-year-old's hand during a game of high-stakes operation. guys. I want to be honest. I think this thing is better at writing first drafts than me, like straight up. Oh my god. This is kind of crazy. I'm not gonna lie. I don't really know what to say. This is the reason why I was thinking that I should probably start looking into these tools, because my stubbornness and just trying to do things manually, and you know, the way that writers have been doing this for hundreds, thousands of years, that stubbornness was preventing me from potentially looking into this further. That would have taken me 20-30 minutes to write, and it wrote it as fast as I could read. Basically, that's how fast it wrote it. This is why I think it's important for authors to be willing to use the tools of their time, because this is a game changer as far as I can tell. Obviously, it's not perfect. The scenes will need revising to be told from a voice that I actually think is authentic to me and a voice that I like better. But as far as a first draft, this is pretty freaking good. So let's just continue here with this, and I don't know, let's see what we can do. Honestly, this is kind of amazing. I know a lot of people feel afraid about this and like thinking that this change is going to just destroy writing and stuff, but I don't think that it necessarily has to be such a dark view of the future. I'm just seeing the possibilities. I can only imagine how quickly and effectively you'd be able to create amazing stories using this. And then you can adjust the story to conform to your taste and what you would want to create anyway if you were writing it from scratch. So to me, it just seems like it's a tool that can help you write more quickly, effectively, and ultimately tell better stories. At this point, I'm pretty darn impressed. I did not expect it to do this good of a job. Also, I'm liking this story so far. This story is cool. I want to read this. So let's just continue, shall we? As I'm continuing to use Chat GPT to try to generate scenes, there are a few little downsides that I'm noticing. For example, the second time I generated this second scene, it ended with Ellie feeling determined, but in the next scene, I have her wanting to leave and trying to find some way out of there. It doesn't really make sense that she would be determined and then want to leave, you know, a second later as the reaction to what just happened. You know, there's always little problems with each scene that it creates, so you kind of have to just generate a few and then pick out the parts that you like and put them together to create some sort of combined band-aid version that actually fits what you want. So I'm just going to keep working on the second scene for now. I'm just going to take all the things that it has generated for me and try to figure out what parts I like the most and put them into some sort of structure that makes sense. So as I continue with this, I am noticing a few more little flaws of ChatGPT's writing. I feel like it needs to read the emotional thesaurus a little bit. It keeps using the same descriptions. The one that it's used the most is like the whiteness of the knuckles. So I have just sped through tons of scenes here with this. I managed to work through about 18 pages of the story today. It's coming along nicely. I think that it'll take one more day to write potentially, but before we do that, I do want to give a few thoughts about how the writing has gone today. I think it's actually a pretty interesting way to write. A lot of times when I'm writing, I feel like the hardest part is just getting that structure onto the page from the outline to the actual scene. So having this write out the scene in the first place and giving me the order of events makes it so much easier for me to come in and add in these details and different like elements that I wanted to include in the scene. Even though I didn't write, you know, that many pages today, even though I only wrote 18 pages, which is similar to what I would normally write in a day on my own, I do feel like the quality of the writing is much higher because I'm coming at it from the perspective of more like a second draft than writing a first or 0th draft. So it's really interesting to be able to write this way. And I look forward to finishing this story tomorrow. So I'm back here to continue writing this story, and luckily my little co-writer here isn't tired, didn't have a rough night of sleep or anything, so is ready to continue writing. So things have been going really well so far. I managed to work through 3 scenes already, and we are into the climax of the story. This is a very fun climax already, and the stakes have just been raised even more coming into this last climactic scene. So this is going to be very, very fun. I just finished writing this last climactic scene. It ends a little bit open-ended, and the story came together really nicely here, so I'm excited to get to this last little resolution. I already know this story is going to end with a little bit of a cliffhanger. It's kind of funny because this is like a very non-standard version of a story, and there's like promise of a sequel. You know what? The story sometimes ends up going in a different direction than you planned. So let's just continue. Let's finish up this resolution, and let's see how this process ends up. So I just finished writing this story and it ended really nicely. I want to take a little bit of time away from it before I come back and read the whole thing together and just see what it feels like, but I'm thinking this is really good. No lie, I think this story is awesome.
Coming into this experiment, I was afraid of the changes AI was bringing for us writers. I was worried that to compete, I'd be forced to use AI tools, and these would suck the fun out of writing for me. But after taking the last few days to experiment, I find myself feeling more excited than ever about this stuff. Because at the end of the day, writing is really a means to tell stories. Whether writing by hand, using a keyboard, or yes, even using AI tools, you still get to feel the enjoyment of something from your mind coming to life. And to me at least, that's what creativity is all about.